Imagine for a moment that you're an extraterrestrial who, for eons, had searched for intelligent life somewhere in what felt like a vast, lonely universe. And then, thousands of years ago, you stumbled on the planet Earth. The joy would soon wear off though. You're traveling the universe, they've barely mastered the wheel. Such a disappointment. So having found no other intelligent species in the cosmos, what would you do? Perhaps you'd give these relatively primitive creatures technology a bit of a boost to help them out of their brutish existence, or out of curiosity to see what they'd do with it, or most likely so that you'd have someone worth talking to one day. But would you just leave taking no further interest? Almost certainly not. It's much more likely that you'd set up a system that would signal to you that humanity had indeed progressed to a more sophisticated level and were worth a revisit. Think of the monolith in Arthur C. Clarke's masterpiece 2001: A Space Odyssey. Buried under the moon's surface, which once exposed, sent out a signal that humanity was now a spacefaring species. Something like that. And you'd probably also set up some means of instantaneous travel between the Earth and wherever you live, if such portals could exist. You might even have genetically mixed with a few chosen humans, taking them to higher levels of intelligence and awareness, just to speed up the whole thing. There's been a recent discovery that has opened a debate about exactly these issues. The discovery wasn't made by professional archaeologists or paranormal researchers, but by a 53-year-old grandmother, Lynn Hickox. In 2005, she was checking Google Earth to find the quickest route to the local museum from her home near Gravelbourg, Saskatchewan, Canada. Widening out a little, she switched to the satellite view and noticed something rather strange. Near Medicine Hat, close to the southeast corner of Alberta, she saw a geomorphological feature that strongly resembled a human face in profile. And not just any face, but one that appeared to be that of a Native American Indian wearing his full indigenous headdress. The structure is remarkably clear. Chin, lips, nose and brow, they're all well formed. And not only does it have basic facial features, it also has secondary ones like an eyelid, and the headdress is clearly made of feathers. Anyway, Lynn took a screenshot and posted it on a message board, and within a day, the image had gone viral. And a year later, following the widespread interest in Lynn's discovery, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation held a competition to choose a name for this mysterious character. Out of 50 suggested names, one was chosen, the Badlands Guardian, as it was felt that he was somehow protecting the area, the Badlands, and possibly had been doing so for thousands of years. Skeptics, however, pointed out correctly that the ear was missing from the portrait, and as they said, if all the other features were so clear, why did the geosculptors, whoever they were, not bother making an ear? A good point. However, a simple answer silenced the skeptics. The face has simply lost its ear, for where it would have been, the land had been flattened several years earlier to make way for a natural gas pumping station. Although the story of the Badlands Guardian isn't particularly new, it's been featured in many magazines and TV documentaries. Researchers are only just starting to see the possible far-reaching significance of that face, and other such features here on Earth and elsewhere in the solar system, as we'll see. Massive earth carvings or earthworks like the Badlands Guardian are usually referred to as geoglyphs, geo meaning earth and glyph meaning carving or symbol. They can be geometric designs like the steppe geoglyphs of Kazakhstan. They can be animals like the effigy mounds on the Iowa-Wisconsin border. And they can be humans such as the huge Badlands Guardian geoglyph. And huge is exactly the right word. The Badlands Guardian's over 1,100 feet wide and almost half a mile in length. Creating it would have been a mammoth undertaking. Not just the labor involved, but bearing in mind that the formation can only be seen clearly from the sky, the planning of it too. Nowadays, it would be relatively easy to plot such a design. We have satellites and GPS. But in ancient days, designing from ground level, that's severely challenging. One theory, part of the developing web of newly considered connections, suggests that the original Medicine Hat Native Americans, the Blackfoot Indians, were visited by extraterrestrials who imparted the knowledge and technology required to create the Badlands Guardian. This isn't quite as far-fetched as it might first sound. Certain areas of the world are hotbeds of UFO activity, and Alberta, Canada, is one of them. In 2009 alone, over 150 reported UFO sightings were made, and one of them occurred very close to the face. In 1967, Warren Smith and two friends were walking in the Badlands area and saw a silver disc-shaped UFO hovering over some nearby trees. They quickly snapped a few photographs. Experts from the Canadian Photo Interpretation Centre looked at them and said that, without doubt, an unidentified flying object, not necessarily extraterrestrial they added, had clearly been captured on film. These photos went on to be important pieces of evidence in Project Blue Book, an investigation set up by the US government to determine the truth behind UFO sightings. And less than 100 miles away from the Badlands Guardian site at Writing on Stone Provincial Park, there's an astounding number of petroglyphs, images carved into stone, including critically the Blackfoot gods, whom the Native Americans called the Sky Beings. Dated at about 9,000 years old, the most prominent of these carved sky beings is Napi, the creator, who's depicted as traveling inside of a disc. He's got 4 fingers on each hand and has an elongated skull, which, as we'll see later, is a powerful clue to the Badlands Guardian mystery and its possible connection to ancient Egypt. But why would these extraterrestrials, these sky beings, teach these early people these geoglyphic construction skills? Perhaps the clue is that these magnificent designs can only be seen properly from the sky. Indeed, they can serve no real function from an earthbound point of view. They were meant to be seen from above, but by whom? And this is why many researchers are coming to the opinion that all of these geoglyphs, Badlands and others, were a form of communication to entities that were able to look down on them from the far reaches of space, or to the ancients, their gods. How would that work? To answer that, we need to turn to Einstein's theories about gravitational lensing. Gravitational lensing is a natural phenomenon that allows us to see things in the universe that otherwise we couldn't. It's like a telescope that uses not a glass lens, but a star or a galaxy to bend and focus light from very far away. In 2019, the Hubble Space Telescope used a natural gravitational lens to see a large galaxy in the Leo constellation that, previously, was too far away and too dim to see. Although the Hubble observation utilized a natural gravitational lens, it's entirely possible that we, and of course those extraterrestrials, could build an artificial one. Already, there are plans to do just that. Proposals to build a space telescope known as Focal that would use our sun as a gravity lens to map the precise location of every star in the Milky Way. And many researchers are of the opinion that these sky beings, if they exist on faraway planets, could be keeping an eye on us, incorporating faster-than-light image transmission such as the Alcubierre warp bubble to monitor our civilizations for signs of advancing technology. An Alcubierre warp bubble is a theoretical model for transporting spacecraft or data by contracting space-time in front of it and expanding space-time behind it. This makes it possible to move faster than light without breaking any laws of physics. And one of the ways the extraterrestrials could monitor us is to look out for huge human-made geoglyphs, which presumably would be visible to them even at extreme distances. Many geoglyphs appear to have predecessors, including in the Badlands Guardian location. The idea of signaling to aliens using formations on the Earth was first proposed by the prominent German mathematician and physicist Carl Friedrich Gauss in 1870. He hypothesized that, by creating large-scale shapes and figures, they might be seen afar and indicate intelligent life here on Earth. He proposed creating a huge geoglyph in Siberia that showed the Pythagorean triangle, a clear indication of our knowledge of sophisticated mathematics. And of course, the ancients would almost certainly be creating these geoglyphic patterns or images, not just in memory of them, but also to signal to the otherworld folk that they wanted them to return. And perhaps they are starting to return. Researchers like David Childress, the author of Technology of the Gods, have suggested that, with the Badlands Guardian and all the reported UFO activity nearby, this area of Canada could be a portal or interdimensional location where UFOs are coming and going. What evidence is there that these sky beings might be what we call extraterrestrials or unknown life forms rather than just myths? The geoglyphs at the famous Nazca lines in Peru show what appears to be a human or humanoid figure wearing a spacesuit. The Blythe in California's Colorado deserts are of a very strange, tall, spindly beings. And at the Atacama giant in Chile has what appear to be antennae coming out of the top of his head. Having said that, the Badlands Guardian is unique. Apart from its naturalness, it's the only one with a face. And this is why researchers are now thinking that this could have been created by those Native Americans, having earlier learned the methodology from the off-worlders. But whose is that face? Is it one of the ETs, or a self-portrait of a member of the tribe? If the latter, an interesting issue arises. You would have thought that, for reasons of status, the Blackfoot chief would have been portrayed. But the headdress isn't a chief's ornate regalia. It's actually the headdress of a medicine man, incorporating the tail feathers of an eagle. Now, in Native American culture, the medicine man didn't just hand out potions. He was a wisdom figure, a combination of doctor, professor, and priest, all in one person. He would have shamanic powers that he'd use to make contact with invisible dimensions, upper worlds as they were called, where he'd link to spirits, gods, and forms of energy that are beyond our understanding. It would be he, not the chief, that would be in communication with these unknown life forms, or ULFs. But through the power of 3D computer modeling, there's a suggestion that not only was the Badlands image that of a visiting ULF, but that it shares an unexpected commonality with ancient Egypt. Forensic 3D artist Marcia Moore of Los Angeles, California, has been taking a professional interest in the Badlands geoglyph. In 2019, she reconstructed the satellite image digitally to investigate what it would look like as a three-dimensional head. She started with a normal size head and then molded it to the terrain. To her surprise, the computer picked up a strange bulge, sort of incorporated into the headdress. And when the modeling was complete, she saw that the headdress was partially covering an elongation of the entity's skull. This phenomenon, often thought to be deformity, either genetic or through a deliberate act of skull manipulation, is known worldwide. In Peru, in Europe, in the Hittite region of present-day Turkey, and in particular in ancient Egypt, where about 99% of pre-dynastic skulls are elongated or dolichocephalic. This head shape is clearly shown in the statues of Akhenaten, his wife Nefertiti, and their children, including the famous Tutankhamun. Indeed, the typical image of Akhenaten with his elongated skull bears a striking resemblance to the petroglyphs of Napi, and of course, to the Badlands Guardian. Is it possible that the elongated skull people were the visitors who in ancient times had either lived amongst us or had combined with us genetically, and that the Badlands Guardian is simply another representation of this worldwide phenomenon? Worldwide or beyond? In July 1976, the NASA spacecraft Viking 1 photographed a structure on Mars that resembled a face that can only be seen from above, just like the early geoglyphs. And more recently, pyramid structures have been discovered near the Martian face. Could this be a link with ancient Egypt? Before dismissing this as far-fetched, perhaps it might be worth remembering that the city of Cairo was originally called Al-Qahira, which meant City of Mars, and the Sphinx was called Ra-Horakhti, which means place of the horizon, exactly the same name as they gave to the planet Mars. There certainly appears to be a deep embedded memory in ancient Egypt of a connection between their civilization and one that might have been on Mars. But something more impressive happened in 2017, when George Haas, a researcher at the Cydonia Institute, found another face on Mars in an impact crater called Utopia. Unlike the original, this one is in profile and appears to be wearing an avian headdress of feathers, both of these being features of the Badlands Guardian geoglyph. Haas is convinced that whoever formed these faces, particularly the Utopia one, had a direct relationship to the human race. He says it's possible that Earth was, in a way, seeded by a Martian civilization, which explains the similar structures on Mars and Earth. The faces and pyramids may be evidence of a lost civilization that existed on the Red Planet, perhaps millions of years ago, that was transferred to the planet Earth by these extraterrestrial Martians. There's no question that the Badlands Guardian has presented us with some fascinating thoughts and theories. It is, as more traditional scientists claim, just an unusual landscape, and that the human tendency to see patterns, particularly faces, explains its apparent resemblance to a portrait. Or is it something created by extraterrestrials to encourage the development of human technology and engineering? Or, having learnt the skills, is it actually human-made, and possibly a signal to the visitors that we're ready to meet and learn from them once more?